So I went into Amazon feeling a little nostalgic because I wanted to purchase some cloths craft kits that I used when I was like a teen or a kid. But this popped up and I got this instead. I think you can guess why. I really wanted to get it to try to make my dogs with this felting kit. So yeah, this is what we're doing today. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Paula. If you're not new, welcome back and let's get creative. Of course, the first thing is to check the contents of the kit. Here's the manual, actually a very good one with all the instructions and color pictures, and it has QR codes to see videos for each of the pets, which I actually did see one of them and it was really helpful. A bag with a lot of things, the little finger things to protect yourself, and they include these to make your pets into charms if you choose to. A pack with little noses and the material for the whiskers. And of course, you have all of the wool. Here are the colors that came, and throughout this video, you're gonna see my dogs popping in the frame. They've never been more interested in what I'm doing than with this craft kit. I think it's the smell of the wool, probably. They wanted to climb on me or on my desk all the time, both days. They were very, very curious about it. Since their breeds are not included in the instructions, mine are Pekingese and Shitzu, I knew I would have to try to combine some of the breeds portrayed to try to get my dog's likeness. Okay, so to make any of the animals, you're supposed to take a chunk of the white wool, roll it up as tight as you can, and then start stabbing it to get it to be compact in the shape of a cylinder or like a large marshmallow. I don't know what this wooden thing is. I thought at first it was to hold the needles, but I could not get the needles on, so I just used them directly. I started to stab my cylinder, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna take forever and be very frustrating, but it was fun, and I had my marshmallow much faster than what I thought. I was pumped and super happy. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be, and it was kind of satisfying and nice to be poking the wool and getting the shape to form little by little. You know, the same little feeling of accomplishment that you get with clay. This shape is a really nice one to start felting because it kind of falls into place. And here's my dog again. She was always like right there checking things out. The shape was okay, but the texture looked terrible. Not at all like the smooth, felty surfaces from the image of the instructions. But I was happy with it. It was the right size, so step one done. I have a marshmallow. Since the texture looked so bad, I decided to cover it again with another layer of wool. I learned this from another video tutorial I found. I really tried to smooth it a little bit better, but I still got all of these little holes that you can see in the close-up. Still, it was an improvement. After I had that layer of wool on and it looked smoother, I was ready to move on to the next step. I needed to stab or tuft, I don't know what you call it, but I had to make a little flat piece of felt by poking the wool onto the pillow. And then you use this DIY fabric thing to make the ears. Because I'm trying to represent my own dog, you'll see me using very different colors of wool. She's very multicolored. By the way, I think I've never told you their names. My girl Pekingese is named Chiquitita, and I call her Susie. And my boy, his name is Tiago. Anyhow, I prepared the 2 ears and the tail following the instructions, and then I made the 4 little balls required to create her little legs. Her 2 front paws are white and the back ones are a little bit darker. After that, I also made a black ball for her snout, and with all of the parts done, I was ready to start placing them on my marshmallow. Again, I'm just following the instructions here. The first thing I attached were her little ears, then the snout, and when I was putting it in place, I was able to polish the shape a lot and make it look more like an inverted heart. Then I started adding some hair onto her face and more colors of wool onto her ears, because they're definitely not a solid color, they're like layered. Then more wool all over the body following the instructions for fussy dogs. The more I added, the more excited about the project I was. Trimmed the wool a little bit just to get that scrappy look that she has. I also put her little paws in place and continued to add wool all over. Before putting the tail on, I added a lot of wool to make it fuzzy and like cascading like the one she has. But for some reason, doing this made it much longer, or made me notice how long I made it to begin with. I don't know. I lost my sense of scale, I guess, because when I put it on the body, it looked crazy big. Like a huge bird tail or like a scorpion. I left the tail on for a bit as I thought on how to fix it, and I worked on getting more wool onto the rest of the body, and I tried to make the ears more similar to my model here. This part had her really intrigued. I also started to add some of that orange wool onto it because since she was right next to me, I was trying to color match it as best as I could. But as I made her mini-me, I realized she literally has every single color of wool this set had included, so it was gonna be very difficult to match her coat. Regardless, at this point, it really started to look more like a dog, just a very scrappy version of her. I started to trim all of the wool to try to make it look better. I did work a lot on her bum by using my needle and shaping it better into the marshmallow. I feel she has a signature bum that needed to be well represented. That's a crazy dog mom moment right there. Then I tried to trim that crazy looking tail I made for her. I had to cut a good chunk of it off and then add more wool onto that cut tip. I really had to trim like 1/3 of it off, and it still looks so big on her. I didn't really notice right then, so I jumped onto adding the little nose. The tiny nose came with the kit, and it was supposedly easy to attach by just poking a hole with the larger needle and just put it in. But I found this so hard to do, it just wasn't working for me. It kept popping out. I finally managed to do it off camera, getting super close to it. To finish her, I chose to add a little bit of white fur to the bottom of her snout, and with that little part on, I was truly happy with the result and ready to make my other dog. I don't know why I didn't film more of the result to show you, but don't worry, I did film all of my finished pieces and I'll show you at the end. I guess at that moment I just wanted to quickly jump into my second dog. I made my second marshmallow off camera because, to be honest, I was a little bit tired already, and then grabbed different colors of wool to wrap it and try to make it smoother, but also to look more like him. Because I was tired and this step was pretty repetitive, I thought I didn't need to film it and that I could take my crafting into my room to finish while watching a little bit of TV. I moved everything onto my bed and went back next door to my desk to get my phone, and I walked in my room to find this crime being committed. She grabbed her mini-me from inside the box and attacked it, and she destroyed it. And she doesn't even feel bad about it.
Sister, no. No, it's not okay. No. Why?
Was she watching me all this time thinking I was making a toy version of herself for her to play with? I almost passed out, all that work. But can I really get mad at that face? After some examination, I thought I could easily fix it. But first, I would finish my other dog. He was also super interested in the process, and the next day when I took my crafting back to my desk, he kept crying for me to allow him up on my lap. Here's a little footage of him overlooking the process. Okay, so again, following the instructions, I made all of the parts for my second dog. Here's me making his legs and his tail, which is of course now shorter. I learned the lesson. It was not easy to color match him either, as I feel he's also not a solid white or cream. So I just decided to mix every color again. I'm putting all of the parts together, starting with his snout and the ears, like the instructions teach you to do. When all individual parts were on, I also started to cover him in some wool to make him look a little bit fuzzier. Not as much as my other dog because he's a different breed, but still fuzzier than the smooth examples we have in the instruction manual. He's back looking at my process and progress, and I think he doesn't disapprove as much as she did because he's not trying to bite it. When all of the body was covered, I kept working on the snout, adding some extra furriness to it. Then it was time to add the nose, and again, this part is not easy. Oh, and I also had to put the nose back into my other dog, which I had reconstructed the night before off camera. It wasn't that bad to put her back together, and I think she looked okay. I just put the noses in. This time, for some reason, it was a little bit easier. I mean, it still took a long time of fiddling with them, but they were in. So I was finally done with making my dogs out of felt. I was actually super proud of the result, with that being my first time needle felting, and because I still had so much wool left, I thought I'd make something else. But instead of creating yet another dog from the instruction manual, I thought I would try to design and create something of my own. So I started to doodle all of the animals that I could think of that would have the same colors of the wool I had left over. And after thinking about it, I thought I would make a fox. At first I wanted to attempt to do a two-part character with a large head and a little body, but thankfully I recognized my skills with this new craft are definitely not at that level. So I opted for a simpler shape for the whole thing being the body and head together. Kind of like the dogs. I did want this third piece to be much bigger. I mean, the dogs are cute but tiny. Actually perfect for back charms like they suggest on the kit. But I wanted bigger. So I also drew the approximate size I wanted the end result to be so I could work off that drawing like a mold. Also, since I made both of my dogs a little fussy, I wanted to try to make the fox with one of those smoother textures the cats had in the instruction booklet. I started the same way I did for the dogs, just wrapping a lot of white wool as tightly as I could in a shape as similar as I could to the shape I needed the wool to be. So it's kind of like a triangle with rounded corners. Then of course, proceeded to stab the shape many times. It became sturdier and a little bit closer to what I drew. Here's how it's looking. One side is sort of nice and smooth and the other is a disaster. Definitely not at all smooth and felt looking like the cats in the pictures. This new shape also seemed a little flat to me and I definitely wanted my character to look chubbier. So I added more wool to make it rounder and maybe try to fix that texture I made with the needles. Again, stabbed it repeatedly until it was firmer. And this is the shape I ended up with. Still a little bit smaller than what I wanted from the reference in my drawing, but I was okay with it because I didn't have much white wool left and I needed that for the fox's details. Now it was time to add the red parts of the fox, so what you're supposed to do is make a thin rope of wool with the needles and then you take that and sort of draw the outline on your shape that you then fill in. When I started doing that, I realized I needed to figure out what the back of the fox was going to look like and how the brown connected. So back to the sketchbook to figure it out. With the line work done, I filled the space by adding more wool with thin layers. I was also trying to improve the texture. I don't know if any of the things I did were right. I was just following the instructions and my instincts a little bit. With all the red fur on, I started to work on all of its other parts. I made a snout for it the same way I made the ones for the dogs, and I also made the same process of tufting like a little rug to create both of the ears. And then it was time to create his tail. I really struggled with the tail because I didn't really know how to make it. I wanted it to be thick and cartoon-like and like with the teardrop shape. I needle felted it flat first, trying to get the shape I wanted, and I made it thicker and thicker by adding more wool. I really wanted that fluffy foxtail for him. I had the red part, but when I tried to add a white tip, it somehow looked weird and it got super long. It was way too big for the body of the fox, so I tried to bend it onto itself to get it to be the right length. But that looked terrible, so I ended up tearing all of the white part off and I tried to add it in different ways. I tried to make some felt fabric again to wrap it around, but that wasn't working and I had to take it off again. And it pulled out like a sock. It didn't look right until I tried adding very small amounts of wool at a time and I got it to look okay enough. It wasn't perfect, but at this point I was kind of done with the felting. I love creating the first piece, but just making 3 pieces back to back, Finally, I had that tail done. It wasn't looking very nice on both sides, but like I said before, I just felt a little bored with it now. So I just added a little bit more of the white wool on it to cover the ugly holes a bit. I attached it to my fox, and after doing that, I thought I needed to help it look more like a fox by adding white and black to the ears. So I felted more fabric and got those ready on the side. Another thing I needed to create was its hands and feet to match my little sketch. For this I made more black felt and cut it into the shape of the arms. Felted them, and then I decided the fox would not have legs because I was done. I just wanted to finish. I mean, this is a nice craft and I know how people can get hooked, but maybe not do it for so long at the same time. So I attached his snout, ears, and little arms, and I put on his little nose, which was surprisingly easy this time. And I wanted this one to have eyes, so I made 2 little balls of black wool to put onto his face. I also wanted him to have some whiskers, which I put in there like the instructions said, but they honestly are not really fixed. I think maybe I should glue them or they'll probably will fall out. I gotta tell you, I don't know if it was my tiredness or his actual expression, but I thought the little fox was looking sort of meh, so I called him Melvin. See, right now as I edit, I'm not tired and I can reconnect with the fun of making my own character and how cute he looks. So here's Melvin next to my 2 cuties and I think they're all great. They came out amazing. And why not? Let's get my dog's reactions to their mini-me's. I hope you enjoyed joining me as I tried felting for the first time. I know I'm happy now I have my dogs in a little felted version to always keep in my studio. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having the most wonderful day and that I'll see you next time. Bye!